Hi, this is Vijay Shekhar, and you're listening to Journalistic Walk Talks with me. I thought I'll do something very different this time, and I thought let's turn things around. Let's get someone from Gen Z to interview me and ask me about a story that happened around the time maybe she was born.
Hi, I'm excited to be asking you questions about this story today. But before we get into today's story, do you have something to say to your listeners about all the heartwarming messages that you got in the first episode?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was really surprised by the response that I got from the listeners for Whispers from the Rubble, which was my first podcast, my first attempt at doing a podcast, and it was very heartwarming to receive so many messages and so many people listening on, and it was really exciting. And the kind of messages that came in was so positive that I really felt that I'm really on a right track. And I should be doing a lot more than the 4 episodes that I promised you. But for now, we'll keep it at 4 because definitely it's a tough job of remembering the stories that we did and choosing the best ones out of it. But I'm giving it a shot. So let's start with the home trade scam today.
Nice. Okay, so without further ado, yeah, let's get into it. So, the title of today's podcast is Home Trade Scam.
Right.
Can you
So
tell us a little about it?
this was this scam that happened in the year 2002. This was around the time that everybody was talking about the Ketan Parekh scam, which was like a 10,000 crore scam of the stock markets. So somewhere down the line, this story got hidden in the background, but it was still a very crazy and a very surprising scam that happened. And the person behind it, he also was a very smart individual. And the scam was around 500 to 700 crores.
That's
uh,
not a small amount. I mean, that is a significant
yeah,
amount.
definitely. And
Yeah.
the important thing is that this scammed a lot of cooperative banks. So that's what happened. And this cooperative banks, they have the money of all the rural hardworking farmers and the small traders, and also that kind of money which was lost was a big amount for a lot of people. There was this individual, I was a journalist, a business journalist around that time, and I was doing business stories, and I happened to interview a couple of times a young dynamic guy called Sanjay Agarwal. He was the CEO of a company called Lloyd Finance, which was quite a big company at that point of time. At least that's what we thought. And he was, you'll not believe, he was just 32 years of age. So he was a 32-year-old CEO around that time. When today we may hear about IT companies and young CEOs, but those days it was always the old guard.
Wouldn't you have been around the same age when you were just a business journalist and this guy is running his own company?
Absolutely, and not just running his own company, he's dealing in crores of rupees. So it was very impressive, and he was a very dynamic guy, very well dressed, and always very classy, and spoke beautiful English. So he was very impressive in that sense.
Hmm.
And it was always a pleasure to go meet him, interview him, and all. And he had very good knowledge of the stock markets and the way they operate. But it was only later that we actually got to know the whole story, and that's what this whole home trade scam is all about.
Okay, so you said that he was the CEO of Lloyd Finances, right? So what's home trade? How are they linked?
So Lloyd Finance, that got into trouble with SEBI, which is the regulatory body of the stock markets, and they had to face a lot of action. But what Sanjay Agarwal, this 32-year-old boy, did is just change the name of the company, and suddenly all this investigation just went away. Like, because there's a new company in place, Eurasia Securities, so there was no inquiry against Eurasia Securities. So suddenly all this inquiry all disappeared, and Sanjay Agarwal ran this company. But what was funny was, suddenly whenever you traveled in Bombay around that time, I'm talking of 2001, whenever you traveled around the city, there was hoardings across Mumbai, and nothing said on it, just photographs of Shah Rukh Khan, Ritik Roshan, Sachin Tendulkar, and Malaika Arora. These were all massive stars of their time, and just their photographs. And there was this name below it, Home Trade, and the tagline read, "Life means more." That was the tagline that read, "Home Trade, life means more," and
And these
all
big
these big
stars.
stars. And trust me, there was not a hoarding in Bombay which had any other thing. No Tatas, no Reliance, nothing. Everything was Home Trade at that point of time. So I myself was like shocked and impressed. What is this company, Home Trade?
Yeah, and I mean, they managed to get the top stars at the time to do advertisements for them. But what was the company about?
That's what. So when I found out that this is the same company that Sanjay Agarwal is running, so I started making inquiries and trying to find out what exactly is Home Trade all about. I must have asked 100 people and nobody seemed to know what Home Trade. Everybody knew the name.
Knew the name and knew of the company.
And come on, these stars were the biggest stars of their time.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, they were endorsing something without probably even understanding what the company was. Is
but
that what you're
that's normal. All
suggesting?
film stars
Okay.
advertise and say that we use
So
Lux
and so
soap
company,
and
yeah.
this thing. It doesn't mean they really use Lux soap. But having said that, I mean that's a different topic for a different day. What I'm trying to say is that these big stars were endorsing this product. Nobody knew what the product was, and neither was the advertising saying
Clear
anything
enough.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
they just said Home Trade and Life Means More and all these big stars. So suddenly we hear that Sanjay Agarwal is missing and he's like being sought after by the police, CBI, and a lot of disgruntled people who wanted, I was told, and quote unquote, they wanted him dead around that time. I said, what happened suddenly? This maverick guy, this guy who had the Midas touch and would turn everything into gold, suddenly is missing and is apparently run away with hundreds of crores of people.
So a man who, it's not even the first time he's done it, right? Like he had two companies before this. He ran the scams, changed names, never disappeared. But now he's disappearing.
Yeah, that's what. So this whole thing came to light when he disappeared, and then we found out that Home Trade, he was trying to advertise Home Trade as this, .com company, but it was nothing but a website which was kind of a broking website, which we see nowadays everywhere. But those days it was something new. There was virtually no clients or no customers on that website, so it was a big brand with nothing, no substance in it. Like it was just crores and crores,
So
probably
just
all
a
the money.
shell.
Yeah, and all the money was spent on advertising and getting all these big stars and all. Later, I was told that even the stars were not paid their whole money.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so he scammed even the stars. But anyway, like this whole thing happened, and then we found out that actually the money behind this company was coming from this cooperative banks, which he scammed. And
So the banks were loaning him this money.
yeah, they were loaning him money. He was buying government securities for them. He never really bought the government securities, I was told. He would take the money and just give them a Xerox copy of a government security. The same similar scam, with Harshad Mehta used to do, or Ketan Parekh later would do in the
Yeah,
markets.
we've seen this in like documentaries and
Yeah,
shows and
absolutely.
everything that have been
Yeah.
made.
And
But
but then everybody's talked about them a lot, but
yeah, you know
nobody's
what's weird about this is that I've actually never heard of home trade before. This is the first
absolutely,
time I'm hearing about
absolutely,
it.
absolutely. But it was no small scam, and the man was a really intelligent man, and somebody who managed to run away with 500 crores and still stay out of the headlines. But of course, at that time, I'll tell you, it did make headlines around that time, where the CBI were pursuing him. Then the local police, there were a lot of police complaints against him in various police stations. And not just that, the cooperative banks and the directors who are running these banks who he scammed, they were after him, and they, I'm told, had links with political parties. And so this political party, large political party who I won't not name, was actually gunning for him. And I was told that if he was caught, they would probably kill him. So the man obviously was on the run, and this went on for months. So, like, imagine there was a CBI, there was a police, and this whole lot of people who were searching for this man.
So where were you at this point, and where do you play into all of this?
So, as I said, I knew of Sanjay Agarwal. I met him a couple of times. Not, I cannot say that I knew him very well, but of course, since I knew him, I decided that you
I
know,
mean,
why
you
not?
were in the business world, so you were like interviewing him and everything through
Absolutely.
work.
So I thought, why not search this man out and see what he has to say about this whole thing. But when I discussed it with a couple of people, they said, "Are you crazy? The police are trying to search for this man. The CBI is unable to find him, and you're going to find him." I said, "Okay, that's a challenge. Like that, when someone pushes me against the wall, I get a little more excited, and I want to do more of that." So I decided, okay, now I'm going to search this man out, and I started, working the phones, and I did get him.
You found Sanjay Agarwal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you, this was the days before, mobile phones were very commonplace,
Mm.
or internet was used extensively. It was there around, but we, of course, poor journalists, we would never have much access to all this. But having said that, I started really stepping out and meeting people who knew him, who knew of him, trying to just find out one link where somebody could be in touch. A man is not going to disappear from the face of the earth and not be in touch with anybody.
So how did you catch him finally?
So then I started meeting people. I started sending out the word that I want to interview him and I want to hear his side of the story. Every person has the right to tell his side of the story to the world, and as a media person, we cover both sides. Unlike, I would say, the way media is
Is
today.
currently
Yeah,
working,
so
yeah.
we would actually, look out for both the sides, and we would put it out there, and the public would actually make the judgment. We were not, making judgments the way it is done today. We would put out the story and let the public make their own opinions. So I started,
So
reaching
you
out to
think
people.
that he got the sense that maybe there's one journalist out there who's actually willing to hear his side of the story and portray it as it is? Is that how
I'm
do you
sure
think
there
it
were other
worked?
journalists of those times, because those days journalism was not as yellow as it is today. But I actually made the effort of going
Yeah.
out, trying to search him out, and there were many people trying to do that, but to no success. When the word got back to him, he contacted me through various sources, and he said, "Okay, I'm willing to tell my side of the story." And but the thing is, the day he contacted me, he said, that you have to come and meet me today within a couple of hours, and I will give you an interview. But the thing is that I was in Mumbai and I had to travel to Nagpur, which is, many, many hours, like it's more than 12 hours away by train. We used to always travel by train those days. Journalists, as I said, didn't have the luxuries that most journalists have today. We had to travel by train. So I said, it's not possible to travel to Nagpur all the way today within a couple of hours and reach you. So he said, I don't know anything about that, but I'm giving you the interview today. My life is in danger. If you can make it today, then fine. So I took up the challenge. I went to my boss. My boss was very, he was not very happy with me around that time, and I didn't have a great relation with my boss during those days. So the first thing that he turned around and told me, "Yeah, it's a great story. It's brilliant. But if you don't get the interview, then I would suggest you don't come back to office." So that was a very clear diktat that he gave me, and I said, "Wow!" I mean, I'm getting a story, I'm working on it, but frankly, it was not in my hand because there's no way I could
Maybe he
contact.
didn't believe you that it was actually Sanjay Agarwal on the other end, right? There was
No,
no way to
maybe he was
know.
hoping that I don't get the interview, and then
He could fire
that could
you,
be a
yeah.
reason to fire me. So I don't know whatever was his reason, but
But yeah, the stakes were high for you as well on this one.
absolutely, absolutely. And of course, I took up the challenge. As I said, when somebody says I can't do something, then it gives me a lot more power to do it. So I decided to take the flight, land up. The only downside was that there was no way I could contact Sanjay Agarwal. The only way was that he would reach out to me. There was one phone, mobile phone, which was used by the whole office, and I got a chance to take that with me. So he had that number, and he had specifically told us to stay in a particular hotel in Nagpur, and he said that he'll reach out.
Okay, so he gave you a location, he gave you a time and a place and everything. So you landed up. Now you're in Nagpur. What's
Right.
describe this for us? What does it look like?
So afternoon he called me. By evening, actually by night we landed around 8 o'clock in Nagpur and went to the hotel that he suggested. It was a very small hotel, and we were in our room. And then all we could do is just look at the phone and hope that it'll ring. And it didn't ring the whole night.
the whole night went by and you didn't receive a call from him.
So I was probably in my mind, I was typing out my resignation letter because I realized that this interview is not going to happen. He promised to come in the night and meet us, but he did not. So the whole night went off like that, and then suddenly in the morning he calls up and he says that, I'm sorry I can't give you the interview, but don't worry, I'll take care of all the expenses that you incurred. So don't worry, you'll not.
With what money? The man was on the run.
Yeah, but I
I
mean,
know. Yeah, for
it's not.
you, it was about more than just the money. It
No,
was
no, it was
about,
not that we were going to accept
yeah,
any,
compensation. Yeah.
compensation for the money spent. It was just a question of getting an interview, which was a
Right.
very important interview at that point of time. Now, let me tell you that this was like early in the morning, around 9 o'clock. The call had come through, and he
Okay.
said that sorry, I can't make it, and I'm, you know, 3 hours away from
Nagpur.
where, Nagpur, and I cannot make it. And let me tell you, the temperature in Nagpur was, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it was 44 degrees. It was
44
so hot.
degrees
Yeah,
Celsius.
it was so hot. First, he asked me, can you travel 3 hours? I said, I can travel 6 hours if you tell me, but I
I
need the
need the
interview.
interview.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But then he said that, no, no, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Please go back to Bombay and, just tell your people that it's not happening.
Mm.
Now, he again called after another half an hour. He again said the same thing. He said, I can't give you the interview and all that thing. Again, like, there was no point. I was wondering why he called second time. Like, if he was not going to give the interview, he had already said it in the first go.
Right.
Now, the third time, he called up and he said, okay, which room are you in? So I said, I told the number. He said, okay, I'm giving you exactly 5 minutes. Set up the camera inside your room and we are doing the interview. So I said, 5 minutes is too little time to set up the camera. But that's what he said, and we jumped out of our beds and we started setting up. Like within 5 minutes, there was a knock on the door. The door opens, and this man in covered face with dark glasses and a peak cap, which virtually you can't see his face, only his eyes were visible, came to the door. He had a handkerchief around his face, and he said that, are you ready? I was like, who's this? But then I realized, okay, this is Sanjay Garwal. Obviously, he had lost a lot of weight since he was on the run for, I think, couple of months it was. And then he walked into the room. The whole air in the room changed. We were ready and gearing for the interview. He sat down. He said, the reason I misled you on the phone is I know all phones are tapped. I'm sure the police, the CBI, everybody in Nagpur, people who are after me, know exactly where I'm heading. So I misled them by saying I'm not coming, and I'm giving you 10 minutes to interview me. After that, I'm out. Because even if somebody came to know that I'm here now, by the time they reach your room, we are gone. So I said, fine. I was ready with all my questions. We set up and I started doing the interview. So in the interview, he tried to explain himself about the scam and the money and how the markets had crashed and all the investments that he did went wrong, and that's why he lost the money. He was not planning to scam people, but that's what all people who scam say. We took it with a pinch of salt. We put out hard hitting questions to him. He was answering a few, he was stammering over a few, but in the end of things, he gave us the interview. But before leaving, he told me one thing, that don't air this immediately, because my life is at stake, and for you it's just an interview. For me, it's surviving.
I think
He's
he didn't know that, of course, the interview was very important for him, but at the same time, it was just as important for you as an upcoming journalist. And I think that interview somewhere changed both your lives, right?
absolutely, because I was very skeptical about this whole threat to my life kind of thing and all, which he was trying to sell us. But you'll not believe, he left the room, and within 5 minutes, somebody knocked at our door, and somebody walked in and said, was Sanjay Garwal here? So
What?
yes, absolutely. So I said, who's Sanjay Garwal? He said, no, don't tell us that story. We know Sanjay Garwal had come here. So I said, how do you know? He said, no, no, we know, and I'm a journalist and I want to interview him also. I thought the whole story was a very fishy story, but
So 5 minutes after he left the room, someone came knocking, looking for him.
absolutely, and they knew by name who was in our
So
room.
he was right. He knew people were looking for him.
Yeah, so but this person was trying to masquerade as a journalist, but I don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
But anyway, he checked the room, walked in and checked the room and all, and then he left.
Only cops would do that. That's not something a journalist would
No,
do.
he didn't see. He was
He'd
not a
not.
cop. He was
Oh,
not a
okay.
cop. Definitely not a cop. But and I was, asking my cameraman, did you tell anybody that we were interviewing
Yeah.
Sanjay Agarwal? He said, no, no, I didn't tell anyone. So it's still today
Very
a
fishy.
mystery. Then 15 minutes later, Sanjay Agarwal calls me up and he says, okay, you can air the interview because I have surrendered to the police in Nagpur.
What?
So yes, so then within 15 minutes of talking to us, he surrendered.
What did you say to him in this interview that made him surrender within 15 minutes when he was on the run for months?
See, I would love to believe that I was the cause of his surrender and I was able to convince him to surrender, but frankly, I'm sure he worked it out and he knew that if he stayed on the run forever, he would be killed. So he realized that he would be safer in police custody than outside. So that is something that I've always thought about, because the newspapers later on, this whole thing hit the headlines and later on said that the journalists had traveled with him and got him to surrender and all, which was not true because I was the journalist they were talking about. I know for sure that we were just part of the interview and then he surrendered on his own. So, but if something I said made him surrender, I'm happy to, get
Can
that.
you recollect what you said to him in this interview?
No, it was just the questions about the scam and why was he on the run if he thought that he was doing nothing wrong. But he said that no, the people who lost money were very dangerous people and they had
After
said,
his life.
yeah, they said that they'll kill him and all if he didn't return the money. That's why he ran away. He's not worried about going to jail, but he was worried about his safety. So that was one part of things. And then he was put in jail. Very funny thing happened after that was we aired the story, we aired his interview and all.
And I'm pretty sure it went, viral. I don't know what
Absolutely,
it was
absolutely.
called
It
back
was,
then, but
yeah, yeah. So it went viral and everywhere. There was no virality of
yeah.
the way we
But it
talk
was
of today, but
basically
everybody caught onto the story and then
on all the headlines and
absolutely all
everything.
the all channels, newspapers carried it the next day. But one funny thing happened is one rival channel, the reporter landed up in the lockup that he was, and she started fighting with Sanjay Agarwal, who was in the lockup at that point of time, saying that how dare you give Vijay Shekhar the interview? Why didn't you give us the interview? So he, this man was in jail, fighting for his life and whatever, fighting for his freedom, and there this reporter was like, saying you should have given us the interview. Why did you give only one person and all that kind of thing, which today is very common, but those days it was a very funny thing to happen. Today, a lot of journalists do this kind of funny things, but those days it was very rare. Having said that, yes, that happened also.
Yeah, I think it was a very important interview. And when people have been looking for this one man for so many months, and you finally get him on record speaking about the scam, of course, I'm pretty sure a lot of journalists were very, very jealous of you. I want to know what your boss had to say about all of this at the end of it.
Well, he just shrugged his shoulders and said, "Oh, nice interview, good, good, good." And our relations never changed. I mean, God bless his soul, he's no more today. But
Oh.
we continued having this editor-reporter relationship. One
Okay,
thing, I
so
work very well under pressure, so I'm happy that he was,
there to push you.
yeah, to
Yeah.
push me and to stand as a barrier so that there's something to break through and to fight for.
Okay, do you know where Sanjay Agarwal is today?
No, so that is what I wanted to actually ask my listeners to do is probably, at that point of time, there was internet, there was mobile phones, but not as common as I said. But I still found him. Right now, I was trying to do some research and find out whether, he's still, obviously, he's out of jail. It's been a long time. But I wonder where is he? So there's something I'd like to give my listeners and ask them if they can search this man out. Today they have mobile phones, they have every possible thing to search a man out. Nobody can hide
I
right
mean, if
now.
he has a Facebook account, then that's somewhere to start with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
But
sure he's probably started another company, and he's probably
maybe changed his
scamming.
own name.
Yeah, no, probably scamming someone else, or I don't know, or he's turned straight, whatever. But I am throwing this challenge out to the listeners. Find out where the same Sanjay Agarwal is, the man behind home trade scam, the man who shook up a lot of investors in India, and the man who was being hunted down by the police, the CBI, you name it, and the man who surrendered, of course. If they can search him out with all the weapons that they have today in their hand, I mean, I'm sure it would be an exciting thing.
Yeah, I love this. I can't wait. I can't wait to see if he actually managed to find Sanjay Agarwal. Let's go.
So that's it for me on this podcast on the home trade scam. This is Vijay Shekhar signing off for Journalistic Book Talks.